All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. Super excited to introduce Daniel and Scott. First of all, who here has watched Love Island, Hell's Kitchen, Queer Eye? Okay. Well, I'm really excited to introduce our speakers here. My name is Soyoung. I'm co-founder of TwelveLabs. We're an AI company that builds foundation models and applications for content and contextual understanding. Excited to introduce Danielle, who is CTO of ITV Americas, and Scott, who's SVP of Technology.
Hello.
So today, our session is going to be about how world's leading unscripted content creators actually build technology and how they think about AI in a very practical but also way of how do you effectively adopt AI at scale. Cool. And I will start by asking our guests to introduce themselves and their backgrounds.
Thank you, Soyoung. Hi, I'm Danielle DeStefano. I'm the CTO of ITV America. I started my career as an intern and PA at NBC, and I worked at NBC Sports for several years and was able to participate in 4 Olympic Games at a very young age, and it was a wonderful experience. And then for those of you that know tape, I met someone in the tape library who introduced me to reality TV, and then my unscripted career took off from there. And then I worked at a small production company in New York City building their post pipeline. And that is where I met Scott, who was one of our technicians there. So Scott and I have known each other for 18 years, I think, quite a while. And then ultimately ended up at ITV, and we're working on Love Island and Hell's Kitchen and a lot of the quick turn formats right now.
I'm Scott Thompson. I am the SVP of Technology at ITV. I'm based out of New York City. I actually started more on the creative side of things. I was a musician. I got into making multimedia things, motion graphics. I started producing and doing that sort of thing for a long time. And I eventually started working at Postworks in New York City, which is where I met Danielle. And that was really a kind of a fluke that I started there, and it really changed my perspective and my direction, and really was like a stomping ground for me to learn and grow and understand television. There were some of the best people there that I could learn from. You could go in one room and figure out how to repair old decks and run cables, and you could go in and learn finishing, and you could go learn and do all these things. So I spent a lot of time there learning. By the time I left, I really was into beta testing, figuring new things out, like workflows, like just really digging in deep. So I think after that, I moved on and I worked at many different companies. I worked in news, I worked in sports, I worked in feature films. I did all this stuff, which brought me to ITV. So we've been there now we decided 9 years. 9 years I've been at ITV.
And ITV America produces some of the most recognized titles in unscripted television. Walk us through what it looks like. What does the content and footage look like in reality when you're actually managing all of that?
Well, it's a lot of footage. Nowadays you can put 1 million cameras up. I think for Love Island, we have about 100 cameras in the villa at once. We're not recording all of those, but we have some other shows where there's, they come to us and they say, we have 3 or 4 cameras. And then we say, how many GoPros? And there's 20 GoPros. So it all adds up. And that's, mainly HD. We also have a bunch of UHD shows as well. And Scott, do you want to talk to some of the storage?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it too is the unscripted, just the reality of it is that we don't know what's going to happen, and we can plan and we can think about what's going to come in, but we have no concept at the end of the day. And I think especially when we have shows like Alone, where you have a person that is out in the wilderness self-shooting, doing these things on their own. Some people come in and shoot for 5 minutes a day because they're not used to doing it. And some people shoot 1,000 hours while they're there. And we are getting that back. So I like to think of it a little bit like painting with watercolor. Like you can have this great idea and you start to put it in play and it starts spreading and doing other things. And sometimes that causes problems. Sometimes that turns into something really beautiful, but the storage is like something we have to keep a very tight eye on. So we manage about, I guess it's 10 petabytes of active storage that's outside of our archival, deep archive, that sort of thing. And we have close to 1,000 editorial systems for offline, online graphics and all of that. So sometimes we're ramped up and we're using that consistently. And sometimes we have some of it dark, but we have to be able to kind of find that balance in an unknown world, really.
And that's fascinating because nature of reality and unscripted is that you actually don't know where the story elements are going to come from. So you're unable to kind of plan ahead around exactly how much you're going to capture. And there's so much opportunity constantly coming in. I'm sure it ranges differently broadly for different shows, but what does the shooting ratio look like?
I mean, it can literally be 100 to 1, or it could be 700 to 1. So we're really kind of, and we, you know, when we do these things too, we work very closely with the production teams. We have conversations about what to expect. Like, what are you going to do? How much do you think you're going to shoot per day? Or how many cameras do you have? How many cameras are you hiding in your back pocket that you aren't confessing to at this point? We do calculations. We talk about codecs. We talk about what they want to shoot. But again, at the end of the day, someone has an iPhone they want to use because it just fit the purpose. They wanted to shoot in 6K because they wanted to take advantage of a sensor that didn't for HD, right? You're shooting an HD show, shooting 6K all of a sudden. So I think that those are the elements that kind of contribute to that whole thing.
And just to add to that, we are involved in the process from the initial development stage and green light, and we're part of those conversations. A lot of smaller production companies don't have that. And so we get into those conversations and we ask hard questions and we kind of tell people, like, we need to know what your plan is. And we did a show once where they were shooting with a red camera and I was like, do not shoot in 4K. It's an HD show. It was for Fox. And they came back and they said, well, we shot in 6K. And I was like, great, that sounds lovely. So,
and raw.
Yeah, and raw, exactly. So we're problem solvers. We're constantly on the receiving end and we just have to be able to pivot, and we can plan all we want. But sometimes, like Scott was saying, with Alone, I think it's like 10 or 12 contestants that go out into the wilderness. They're self-shooting. Depending how long they stay out there, they can stay out there for like 20 days, 50 days, 100 days. We just had someone shoot 1,000 hours and everyone else is shooting like 500 hours. So all of a sudden you have more footage to log, more footage coming in, more footage to process, and the post schedule does not change. So that's our challenge.
I think quickly too, like, we want to be, when we're working with our creatives and our teams, right? We want to be the people that say yes, right? We want to support the creative. We want to do what we can, but we also have to make sure that it's not just spiraling. And sometimes you get people that just want to use the new camera. They just want to see that stuff. And there really isn't a reason to do it at the end of the day. But we are trying to constantly have those conversations where we are trying to say yes. And yes, how about this? Or you want to do this? Like, let's make this happen here. But what about here? Can we make a compromise? So I think it's just a constant hustle for us.
Okay, so you get thousands of hours, let's say, over a day, couple of days from GoPros, different phones, sometimes even iPhones, it sounds like. What happens afterwards?
Well, we have a system and we have a process and we have a workflow and we keep that pretty tight. I think we're starting to re-examine that now and think about what else we can do to speed that process up. But essentially everything comes in. We use several services to get footage back from the field quickly. We have 2 main data centers in Los Angeles and Connecticut, and they're connected through an MPLS. So we're able to like shoot something on the East Coast and quickly get it over to the West Coast, or we have edit systems remoting in from Los Angeles. We did a show recently where we had editors in Australia, UK, Canada, US, South Africa, I think. And we used our network in America to be able to host the media ourselves versus putting it in the cloud, because that made sense for that show. And that was the most economic way to do it. So footage all comes into a central place. Scott manages our ingest team. And, you know, we're at a point where we're trying to automate a lot of that. Obviously, AI comes into that, but, you know, we're just trying to get through it as fast as possible.
Yeah, I think that we have a really good system in place that we've been using, and it's really the foundation for what we're doing now, which is kind of trying to break that foundation apart and make it a little bit more bespoke, make it a little bit more, let's have deeper conversations about each show and the creative and what the needs are, so that we can take that foundation that we have and we can pull elements out and put new ones in and make it make sense. And it really isn't always fun to do that. And I think part of it is we're negotiating the technology, we're negotiating with the teams shooting in the field, we're negotiating with the creatives in the edit, all of the people that this impacts. Some people are thumbs up all for it, and some people really struggle. So like we really try to curate that part of it for everyone at our in ITV, because I think that we want the people to be like, the technology itself is to support the creative, and we want them to get to the creative as soon as possible. Sometimes that's really hard when you're shooting a show like Alone, where you're getting unexpected footage, but also you have no idea what it is. You have no idea if they shot their feet for 3 hours or if a bear is going to attack the person. I mean, like, you literally have no concept of it. So we're now thinking about these systems and going, well, okay, we have our process, but how are we getting in front of that? How are we looking at it as it's coming in? How are we getting more perspective before it even gets that far down the pipeline? So.
Well, and just to add to that, we are in the process of breaking our systems, as Scott said. So Alone is a good example. Season 13, I think, is what was just shot. And we decided to switch editing tools because we wanted to get the footage in faster. We wanted to get it in people's hands faster. And then, you know, that was a big adjustment for the team. They were on board, but it took many months of trying things out and getting people comfortable. And, you know, you want to hire the same team, but you got to teach them new skills. So we're basically hand-holding everyone through that process. And at the end of the day, it comes down to budget, right? Like we're still backing into a number. We're trying to bring shows back and make content and give people jobs. And we have to hit a price point. And so how do we do that? And that's really our job, is to take technology and help us hit those numbers and hit those budgets and make great content.
And I want to double click on that, Danielle. Earlier to me, I think you mentioned that ITV is also evolving as an organization from a creator to also a seller. And I want to explore what that means to be both a creator and a seller for an organization like yours.
Well, traditionally we have we're getting funding from a network, whether that's development or a series, and then we're taking that money, we're putting it on the screen. One of the things we've been doing more of is just investing our own money into content and trying to put it out there, whether that's YouTube or a podcast or a vodcast, and just trying to see how we can explore talent relationships and content and sort of put something out there and then find a buyer. We did an entire series that we cut and edited and got it all the way to rough cut, and then we sold it to a network, and then we had to finish it with the network specs. So we're just trying to think outside the box, and really it's about content and how people are consuming it, which is very different. I feel old saying this, but, you know, ultimately, like, you know, my daughter's generation, like younger people are just watching stuff on TikTok and YouTube, and they're also watching linear content, or streaming content, but there's a lot more avenues to be able to put the content out there.
Does that mean also that the way that you approach the creative process is also changing as an outcome of how your business is also evolving?
Yeah, I mean, as Scott said, I think we're trying to just not be a barrier to the creative. Like everyone's coming at us with new ideas, and we have everything from Love Island, where the show gets edited and turned around in about 18 hours every single day, 6 days a week for 6 weeks. So that is a massive team effort. And then we've done some live stuff, kind of dabbling in that area, but really like that quick turn when you're talking about petabytes. I think Love Island is about a petabyte of footage. So you got petabytes of footage coming in, you're turning it around quickly. It's an entire post-produced team. So we've been sort of, exploring and trying to figure out, how do we do that faster? How do we give people tools to be able to find that little story beat that was like hidden somewhere that no one saw, that's going to actually make that story more interesting?
I think a good kind of touch point on that is this year, I mean, we met you at CES, right? So we had never been to CES before, and we decided to go this year because we feel like it is very relevant to what we do now. It's everything is meshing together, and everything, we were talking about this as we walked over here. You see something that doesn't strike right away, but you tuck it in and then you think about it, and later as it comes up. So sometimes in the case of like the Alone team, right? They came to us and said, we have these ideas on how to speed things up. And we said, we got some things for you too. So let's collaborate on this and have this conversation. And sometimes really we are trying to follow the creative and say, to support what they need. But sometimes we like to go to our creatives and say, look at this cool stuff. And then we get their brains kind of churning in that direction too. So I think the creative parts, like we're all just trying to go, how can we think about this differently? How could we approach it differently across the board?
Just to add to that too, like we are very involved with our development team, and they're giving us their pitches and their ideas, and we're attending their meetings, and we're going, hey, we saw this new tech, and what do you think of that? And just trying to maybe build creative around the tech, so that when we put our pitch in front of a network or in front of a studio, it's different. What's the spin on unscripted TV, right? Like we've seen a million dating shows, we've seen a million, similar competition shows. How do we make it differently?
And on that, curious to get your thoughts on what are strategic things that you think about when you're adopting technology in the right way? Because I know, there's a lot of things that we've discussed that are in consideration, from the technology to how do you drive adoption successfully across?
For me, the thing is like, what are we trying to solve? And I think a lot of people, especially now, the way technology is moving so quickly, it's a little bit like squirrel, and everyone's running to the latest tech and the latest tool. And people are coming at us, I think, probably 10 times a day asking for new tools to get approved because, we're very strict about what we allow in terms of, with our IP and our content. And so really it's taking that minute to pause and say, like, what are we trying to solve and where are we going with this versus running to like the latest tech? I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think this is the bottom line. And I think that it's really easy to walk around and see wow technology. Like that's the kind of the only way I know how to explain it. Like, and everyone has these great tools, and especially in a world with AI, like there's some stuff that you sit down and it blows your mind right off the bat. And that's amazing. And then you go to the next level where you try to make it do what you want it to do and put it into action for yourself, right? And in a business for us, we are trying to go in and say, okay, but let's take it to that next level. Let's explore partnerships with people where we can talk about our needs. They can push us to think differently about how we're thinking of the creative and the technology, and we're pushing them to get it to do what we need it to do in order to hit certain marks for us. So, I don't know where that lands in the long run, but it's exciting. I love it. Like we talk about it all the time. And I think to Danielle's point earlier, we talk about it with our creative teams. We send out things to the teams to get them excited about these conversations, and it feels really good to do.
There are so many technologies like you're seeing right now. Do you find that AI today can help automate some of the more tedious tasks?
I think AI is such a broad term that I think we've all heard ad nauseum. But automation has been around for forever, right? And I think it's just how do we use the tools that are coming out faster, that are actually working faster and doing more, to automate the mundane tasks so that we can focus on the creative, so that we can give our teams the ability to, I mean, I can't tell you, I came up as an EP and a producer, like how many weekends producers spend looking through footage, right? They're weekly exempt and then they're looking through footage on the weekend, or they have a deadline and they're there late. It's like, maybe we can save some of that time. Maybe they can go home and have dinner at a normal time with their families, or I guess now everyone's remote, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, how do we get them to like actually use their skill and their knowledge and put it towards creativity by expediting the automation? So there's the automation aspect of it. There's the productivity tools. That's a big one. I think in general, being able to pull analytics quickly on a document or a conversation, or, you know, I was able to take a meeting that I transcribed, put it into a deck, put our, you know, company color palette on it, clean it up, and I had a deck ready to present like the next day or a couple hours later. So those are the things that we're using now. When it comes to generative AI, when it comes to changing any sort of likeness, that's tricky. And that is an area where we are not proceeding, and we are sort of pausing. We're testing, we're seeing what's out there, and we have to work with our network partners to, you know, make sure that it's the right fit for them and make sure it's the right fit for our talent and for our team. So that's the area we're just like testing the waters at the moment. And I think that's where it can be a little tricky. But in terms of automation and productivity, there's a ton of tools out there. Obviously, we've been speaking with Soyoung and TwelveLabs, and there's some amazing stuff there. And there's just, you know, a lot of great tools where we can get in there and kind of see what the footage is and just get to the content faster.
I agree with all of that. I think the other layer for me is building trust with some of these tools, even when it's related to automation, right? Like I think we put our hands on these all the time to try to see what works, what doesn't, test it, feel it out. And part of it to me is, sometimes you get some weird results, right? So you have to learn to trust it and you have to learn its boundaries. To me, it's like learning a language a bit, I think, especially with AI. And I think that's, something people don't always recognize. I think a lot of people like the now button, the easy button, and it isn't always that.
And now that we've all had some time to see, you know, different ways of adopting testing and using AI, I'm curious on what are personal traits of a really effective AI user that you see across the organization? Are there commonalities?
I feel like I'm going to steal your answer on this, but I think we're similarly aligned here. But you just have to be open. Like the way when we were chatting earlier, I described it like my sister does not know how to merge a call on an iPhone, but she can use ChatGPT. So it's like, it's not that hard. Don't overthink it. Just have a conversation with it and try things out and see where it goes. But there's a lot of people that are afraid, which is understandable. Like our market and our industry has declined, right? And so I get that fear, but it's not going anywhere. So you have to figure out how to work with it. Like I give my management team KPIs, and I'm like, okay, just at least 15 minutes a day. Try a prompt, try something, you never know. And then we've got some people that are like, I built this code and now I can do this app. So everyone's experience is a little bit different, but I think it's just like, you know, learning a keyboard, like learning how to type on the keyboard is something that I grew up doing where the generation before me didn't. So everyone just needs to start to use it and play with it, and very casually.
I think a big one for me is judgment, right? It's openness to learn it, and it's the openness to kind of understand that language and find boundaries and work with it. But the judgment of what is good, what's acceptable, there are still people that, whether it's generative or whether it's productivity, or automations, people think that it does it and that it's good because it did it. And part of it for me, especially when you're getting into the generative stuff, it's not the same. So it might do it and you might go, wow, I really like the way it did that. But when you actually take a step back and look at what it's doing, is it the right thing? That's why I have found a lot of people that are into graphic design and stuff like that. They really have, I think, a step ahead. I think people that are really good with language, writers are kind of have a step ahead in that stuff. So, and I think too, when you get people from, like diverse backgrounds with diverse voices, because I do feel that, it's kind of life experience helps in a weird way. So I don't know. I just feel like it's not as simple as you might think. I think when we get into some of these tools, the people who have kind of only done one thing really struggle with it. And when you get someone who's been across a whole bunch of stuff over a period of time, I feel like they kind of pick up and they can kind of transition a little bit more and understand the dynamic a little bit more.
That's fascinating. So adaptability and getting really hands-on, not trying to overlearn. And that was something that was really interesting that I think you said earlier too. It's like, if you try to approach it with too much knowledge, you almost, become overly cautious. And so,
like you're afraid to fail. Like you're afraid to look like you don't know what's going on. And I think that kind of helps, is to just go into it knowing I'm new with this. And I'm just going to, I mean, when I started talking to LLMs, it's like stream of consciousness to me. And as I started to do it, I started to go, okay, I can understand now. I can come in with a different perspective. I can come in at a little higher level now, but that took time. Again, it's like learning a language with it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Daniel and Scott. We have a little over 2 minutes and 30 seconds. If there are any questions from the audience.
I'm just going to ask you guys 2 questions. Like, one, how have you responded to networks and network partners, but also partners that are funding your projects wanting things faster? And also, have your crew sizes fluctuated when it comes to demand, and also how you've implemented AI into your workflows? Have you seen number of jobs grow in your crews or shrink, or has it sort of leveled out? I was just kind of curious in those 2.
Okay, so I think the question is how are we responding to the network demand to do things faster and on a tighter budget, and has that affected our crew sizes and teams? Well, I think in general, there's probably a lot of us here that remember a world where every season you would get a 3 or 6% increase and you'd get like a renewal, right? And it's like, it's gone in the other direction. At least for ongoing series, I feel like in some ways, networks are putting money behind new series. And then once it's a success, it's like, oh, great. How can we keep it the same? And, people are looking for increases and the team gets bigger. I think every show is different, and we have, I believe, a pretty good team that has been across all of our shows for many years. And so we do our best to retain the same talent. We do roll a lot of people over show to show, which helps. And I think, we're just trying to be smart and creative about how to hit the price points and how to do what the networks need. And in terms of how to integrate technology, that's always a conversation with each network, right? Like a conversation with a Netflix or an Amazon is going to be vastly different than a conversation with like A&E, right? It's just going to be a very different conversation. The budgets are different. The price points are different. How we get there is different. But yeah, it's a partnership, and we try to figure it out, show by show as we go.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. And thank you again, Daniel and Scott.
Thank you.
Give a round of applause.
Thank you.
Cool. Enjoy your show. Thank you, everyone.